Carry a lock in the Nautilus support.
And it's it's pretty interesting. It's a pretty common duo partner with the Senna. If you're not going to see something like a Tahm Kench, but at the end of the day, right, you're a tank melee support up against Ezreal Karma, one of the most aggressive, assertive lanes in terms of its poke potential and just harass potential, right? I don't think it's going to be a fun time unless Faker plays Nautilus, which. Okay. Now they're gonna swap that one at the last second. I'm like, okay. I don't think it's 2019 or whenever the mid Nautilus was coming up again. Maybe that was the beginning of 2020.
I would have actually been okay with it, to be honest. I don't think it would have been great, but my issue with T1's draft is the Seraphine, because it's Faker on Seraphine. He's going to be very stable in lane. He's someone who very rarely gives first blood or gets solo killed there. His positioning is phenomenal. I mean, that's not what he's famous for.
Genji's composition with just that, I'm not sure.
Yeah, if obviously the Seraphine was picked up early because that's how Seraphine drafts work. Because if she's left open, you've got to get it. If you want to take that, you can't wait till later because it will just be snatched up. But in a perfect world, if they could just go, can I get a mulligan on this? They'd probably, I think, maybe rather have something like a Victor here in the mid lane with the composition they've built for just more consistent damage.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, what Faker can do here in the pairing that you have with Encore is really good with the Hecarim. If you can have that perfect team fight where you set up two ults back to back and then suddenly there's a cast and there's just so much damage output throughout that moment from Teddy that you do win the fight, but it's so wombo based and it is so easy to play around because it's so predictable. And that's what I'm worried about.
Yeah, you're highlighting that their team fighting later on is going to be pretty ridiculous, right? They have insane amounts of CC, and we actually saw this in the LEC last night. You and I were watching the game and actually talking about it, and they had an Urgot top where there was a lot of damage coming out from that, but their team fighting was just insane, right? Where they had the 80 carry Seraphine and all the big boys go in, and it's just you CC the front line for ages, and whoever you catch, even if it's the fed Tahm Kench, doesn't matter, they're going to die. So maybe it's kind of along those lines. Maybe the T1 coaching staff were also watching that game and taking notes, but it remains to be seen. And Gen.G have a lot of tools in their kit to kind of avoid team fights if they would like to, right? Just send Rascal in the side lane and just ignore them, kind of like Fnatic failed to do yesterday. And maybe you have some better success there.
Yeah, I mean, Udyr is going to constantly be threatening vision control around the jungle because that's what he does very well in the late game. He gets very quick, he's very fast. It's not going to be a Cloud Soul, so that's something. And missed Cannon in there. Not going to be a Cloud Soul, so that's something that's going to make him a little bit less speedy, which, in the LCK, you can almost bank on that when you're in draft. You're like, well, we'll probably get a Cloud Soul later, so. But yeah, he has that ability to disengage. Azir has nice disengage. Ezreal has Arcane Shift. There are ways to avoid these fights, as you said, but also to just set up better for them because of the positioning that your composition allows for. If you get caught, if someone gets picked, if like a solo Encore comes through, with a follow-up Hecarim grabbing somebody, then it's kind of on that player who gets caught if you're Gen.G at that point.
Seeing Life getting pretty aggressive in the lane, it's kind of what you want to do. Some of that poke damage will be nullified by the healing that does come out from the fasting Senna. And keep in mind when we look at the jungle here, it is going to be double scuttle going the way of Clid. So they're really trying to exert that pressure, the priority that they have from the mid and the top lanes, and just saying, okay, Hecarim, you're just by default going to get behind the Udyr here.
Yeah, and this can be a serious issue because it's not like Hecarim can really come in and try to fight the Udyr straight up. I mean, he can look for those types of skirmishes and 1v1s, but he's just not going to be able to keep up. Like, this is a pacing issue, and the jungle speed clear that Clid has on top of it all makes it so difficult. He's looking for a pick here, and Root just flashes it, or arcanes it, rather.
Shifts away.
So easy to dodge.
Yeah, if Keria hits the hook there, you're definitely getting summoners, you would imagine, because Ignite comes out, Life probably would have to flash away, maybe even has to exhaust. But no hook means no summoners. And it's just Cuz showing up, going for a pretty aggressive gank that doesn't necessarily work out.
I think that the LCK as a region is pretty good at knowing these sorts of timings and handling these situations pretty well. And even if there are summoners burned there, you know, it's a failed gank and it's a Hecarim that's behind in CS quite significantly, just behind in farm. And I am personally not a huge fan of Hecarim. It took a while to take off in this region, and it isn't being utilized very well. People are struggling to find value. He's finding himself getting very far behind junglers like Nidalee and Udyr, who could just clear very quickly. And, you know, I talked to you about this a little bit yesterday. I'm just not a huge fan of it in our region because our region doesn't overextend, doesn't play aggressively when Hecarim's on the board. You see Hecarim get a lot of kills in LPL and get huge advantages there in particular. Like, I feel like that's the region he excels most in. But here, it's harder to find that same kind of value in the early game.
Hey, you don't see it all too often. Hecarim obviously going to be farming out the jungle pretty fast himself. But, you know, I love the Ezreal response from Ruler. He's like, okay, you know, you guys are going for a bit of a wombo combo team fight. If I can just avoid that and, you know, take this pick that should be able to survive much better and output really consistent damage in the later stage team fights, I should be just fine. And obviously it's Ruler's Ezreal, so nobody's unhappy about that.
No.
Just when it comes to the pick and the comfort that Ruler has shown on this choice. So really liking Gen G's position here, especially after the way this early game is going. Pretty quiet so far.
Oh, this is a very aggressive rotation in here by Faker and Cuz, and they are spotted.
Yeah, I don't think they can 2v2 here. They are going to get the smite down, though, and Cuz is just galloping away, so I suppose that works.
That went about as well as it could have, I think.
Yeah. You did not want to fight there.
Yeah, that was a very greedy play. If you had bot priority, then it doesn't end up being a 2v2, and maybe you could even turn that Scuttle take into a Drake fight, but obviously in this case, not going to happen. Clid has 6.
Yeah.
Watch out, Cuz.
This is what you can do. You can just start to bully. I mean, Faker's up in the top side of the map, and he wasn't spotted going up there, but just the fact that they still have that priority, the push from the Azir, means that Udyr up a level just gets to do whatever he wants, and should be able to get a free Cloud Drake, you would imagine, if he wants it, although he is not running at that just yet. With the Scuttle control, they wouldn't know he is going for it, so maybe he wants to wait a little bit.
Now that BDD has hit 6, you know, he's level 7 even, in fact, in this game, you have to be scared of that possibility that you're going to get ganked as Faker in the mid lane. So making those rotations and trying to get value as you get the wave kind of pushed and frozen towards your turret is really smart play around the Seraphine. You don't want to get caught, as we saw some Seraphines getting a little bit overextended in the LEC yesterday too. I'll just since we're talking about it.
All right, here we go. The combo comes in onto Rascal. The Hextech Ultimatum just trying to survive, but he's not really in range. And oh, that flash was just as desperate as it comes. Very nice conversion from T1 to get on up there, and Kana has been dominating this top lane and really shutting down Rascal.
I mean, he really has. And this is, you know, the Gragas into the Camille. I feel like it's such a good matchup at dealing with Camille, but he's not only just stable up here and not afraid of this Udyr Camille, but in fact is trading aggressively because Camille, you know, when there isn't an Udyr nearby, you know there's no real kill pressure on you, and you know that Udyr's been on the bottom side of the map so much, you just commit the body slam here, the cask is easy, and Cuz is here just to guarantee, and the Hextech Ultimatum isn't saving anybody, the flash is actually tragic. But you know, this is just really good understanding from Kana as to where the resources are actually being spent for Gen G this game and taking advantage of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a little thing there, I love that he went for the flash body slam. You see a lot of body slam flash. I think that kind of caught Rascal off guard. He's like, okay, I'll wait for the body slam to start and then I'll hook shot away or something like that, or flash away. But he never got that choice. Now we're fighting over the Rift Herald here. The smite is going to go to Clid, actually. Cuz is like, maybe I can pick it up. No, you can't, buddy. You didn't get the smite down.
ㅣFaker's stuck here. This is not a good situation.
They're actually trying to turn it around here. Cuz is taking a lot of the aggro on the bottom side. Teddy and Keria both roaming up. And now you can see Klid is in a lot of trouble. Kana gonna pick up that kill. And even though they don't get the Rift Herald here, T1 will at least pick up the 1 kill. At the same time, though, Ruler's getting free farm in the bottom lane.
Yeah, Ruler's getting some free farm, but this is definitely, you know, turning a bad situation into a decent one on the top side. And it was a really nice play from Cuz. And they were not afraid to take that fight. I really thought Faker decides to rotate in quickly, then he might end up getting Emperor's Divided. There were a lot of tools that Gen G had to really explode in that fight, but they were patient. As we're going to watch this again, Klid gets the steal to start things off. You can see BDD is rotating up, and he rotates actually to the right side here, so he's trying to prevent a retreat. Starts poking Cuz down, and at this moment, if he like froze it there, I'd be like, okay, well, how did T1 turn this around? And they just zone out Rascal, and Cuz prevents anybody else from joining up, so they just trade super well on the top side of the fight, and Klid just can't get out. Cuz has great chasing power.
Kana's having a ridiculous game so far. I know I was one of the guys who was kind of skeptical with him coming in after his performance the last time out, but man, he is on a huge roll tonight, and I really want to point that out because, I mean, he's shutting down the top lane. His team fighting has been insane. The mechanics in the gank on the top side, pristine. And now he's got the most gold in the game.
Yep.
He's the most fed. He's 2-0 on the Gragas top. And it's not just a neutralizing pick anymore. This is a problem for Gen G. He's going AP too, so he's going to start bopping some nerds.
Yeah, he is going to be doing quite a bit of damage, and the positioning for Gen G is going to be really important. But crucially, too, this means that Rascal will not be able to be a menace on this top side. He won't be able to threaten kills, get early turret plates, won't be able to be putting pressure on side lanes as early on in the game as he would like to. And this is again where Gen G's draft was focused, but because they spent most of their resources on the bottom side of the map, Rascal just ends up getting pummeled by this Kana, who's had something great for breakfast, I guess. And like, this is a player who we were touting in 2020 as one of the best new top laners.
Here we go again.
Once again.
Exec Ultimatum is coming in. This time we have TP and Dudir coming in, but the damage is going to be enough. They take down Rascal already, and you can see Gen G just on the run. The Encore's going to hit BDD, and he is in a lot of trouble already. Kana doing so much damage. BDD over the wall. He's actually going to get bopped down here by Faker, who goes for the flash and picks up the kill. Lands another root onto Klid, and this is just massive for T1. They pick up 3 kills in the engage.
This is not how this early game is supposed to look. This is not how this game was supposed to go, right? And T1 are just controlling the game around topside, and this is a teleport from Faker that comes through. They have so much lockdown. And Gen G really need to be careful about committing to these fights when, you know, Rascal gets caught here, Udyr is nearby, and everybody comes up to try to trade this up, and T1 is very happy to take the exchange. Cuz is once again here. Hextech Ultimatum buys time. You see Klid rotates around. The teleport comes through first. Teddy gives some extra shielding because he's got another global. And then Emperor's Divide isn't going to save you here. Faker's here. He ends up being the one who closes BDD's life out, or forces him to flash over the wall at first, and then does secure the kill himself. But like, this is a Seraphine that is out-rotating and out-valuing a very early Azir, and it's BDD's Azir, by the way. And this top side is just out of control. He's got his Everfrost up now.
Yeah.
That means Rascal actually dies so easy. It pops it here.
Yeah, this is a point where, like you say, I mean, Kana can maybe even just 100-0 you. Now with Everfrost, like, you're not really getting out of here. And it's going to be hard for you to even enter the lane. So you could say goodnight to your hopes of having a mid to late game Camille who's doing anything. Because, you know, the split pusher is now Gragas, apparently, who has the advantage in the matchup in this current situation. And it's pretty big. So Gen G, they did get the Rift Herald, and they are actually going to get this first Cloud Drake. So T1, I suppose, kind of caught out in an awkward timing here, and not really going to be able to challenge either of these objectives. But here comes the 2-man Encore, and look at this synergy. The Hecarim over the wall, the Encore over the wall. And Cuz is just too fast. Nobody can catch up to him. And Baker's having an insane game as well on the Seraphine.
Yeah, this is the kind of wombo combos we were talking about for team fights later. Is Rascal just going to die?
What? Yeah, like, this is what I was saying. I mean, you can't even enter the lane.
Cuz is here.
You just have to run away.
Everfrost was just coming back online. at that moment. He's going to use clear the wave now, but like these combos that you can have in the mid lane just make it so difficult to take a extended fight, because you're going to get caught by Hecarim's ult, Seraphine's ult, you know, and like later on you're going to have the ability to knock people into that with the cask around those later objective fights. So this is such a frustrating game for Gen G because their comp was so good and it had so many win conditions, and mid lane was a place where they should have been strong. But unfortunately, they're just overextended here. They're getting greedy because, like, well, let's see, can we get a Drake, and how many plates can we trade back with our Rift Herald in mid? And then he wants to just get even more value, and he's just unsuccessful, ends up getting punished for it. So what could have been, okay, yeah, we're losing top, but we got Drake and some turret plates, ends up being, well, we also lost BDD, and then T1 just trade back another kill. They're 3,000 gold up right now. With a composition where it felt like the top of the map should have been controlled by Gen G, and T1 should have struggled through this part to hope for those later game team fights. They're going to those later game team fights ahead. And sure, there's good scaling with Ruler on the Ezreal, BDD's on the Azir. You have that split push potential, but the split push potential isn't going to be as good. BDD is having a really hard time, so he's not going to be hitting that late game damage as quickly as he wants to be. And then T1 just have so many ways to mess up your synergy in these fights with the comp they have.
Again, this is the thing where it's like, T1 now with the early lead, that's actually pretty massive. I mean, 3-0 Gragas, 3-0 Seraphine. The kills are going pretty much where you want them. You know, if Teddy was picking up more, that would have been nice, but he hasn't really been involved. And team fights were already going to be a problem for Gen G, but now they're just almost impossible. Like, unless you're getting the perfect engage with BDD, even then. So, you know, you kind of have to lean back on, okay, we have some good split pushing, but again, like, Camille's kind of out of this game at this moment in time. She's so far behind. And, you know, it feels like, as you mentioned, these win conditions for Gen G are just, like, disappearing one by one.
Yeah.
So, see what they can do.
This roster, hold that thought. This Life's going to eat some damage. This roster for T1.
Oh, no. I think Ruler's just dead here. Nice flash. Nice flash, buddy. Like, that's not going to help you out too much. Not against a fed Hecarim and a fed Gragas, not at this point in time.
Yeah. True Shot Barrage was hopeful at best. Let's try to trade back a kill. But this roster of T1 is the most experienced one that we've seen, basically. You've got Kana, who's played a great 2020, you know, is trying to bounce back in 2021 at a rough start. ㅣFaker, you know, arguably the most experienced player. Only Deft has played more LCK games than he has. You know, Cuz, Teddy, and Keria, who's not a rookie even himself. And let's see what they do with this advantage they have, because as we talked about before, T1 sometimes start off with an explosive early game, usually about half as good as this on average in terms of the gold lead, but then they end up messing up a lot of the fights because they have bad rotations or overextend, just don't understand the map well. And I am expecting that with this roster, they can take this lead into a bigger advantage as we watch this again. Poor Ezreal on the bot side. Nothing Ruler can do there.
Yeah.
Loses his flash, too.
You could have been any AD carry. You're just dead if you're there. And this is the power of the Hecarim as well. I mean, he can just dive these turrets and make it look really easy. Like, even Life here, your ability to just engage like this is really rough for all these squishy characters on the other side to really deal with. So even Life, thankfully he did have the Blast Plant, but if he did not, would have had to flash away from that one.
Yeah.
And, you know, T1 have a really nice lead at this point in time. You can see the ridiculous amount of gold up that the Gragas is. Of course, with the fasting Senna, you're going to see the disparity there between the AD carry and the support gold down on the bottom side. But really, it's all about the top side and how far ahead T1 is. But they do need to kind of push the issue now, right? Get these objectives and force Gen G into the team fights, because that's where they are strong here.
Yeah, and Gen G, because they got the first Drake, they actually have a little bit more time to kind of sit back and farm up, do stuff like this, put BDD in a side lane where he's going to get a little bit of extra gold, because he needs to get those items online. You know, ideally he wants to hit 3 items in this game if he can, so that he can actually really, really hit that big damage in some of those later fights, the Baron fights. So, you know, if T1 grab this Ocean Soul, or rather Ocean Drake right now, you don't worry about it too much if you're Gen G, because you already have one, and you know this is not going to be putting them on to, like, okay, now they're one away from Soul Point.
Here we go. Hey, here's Hecarim again. This time BDD, though, is going to get a really nice Emperor's Divide.
He has Flash, too.
Now, Cuz has got to be careful, right? You're going pretty deep, and he is going to see Clit and immediately back away. And so Hecarim able to extend on in there. BDD, though, really nice response. Doesn't even have to flash.
This is what you need to be doing if you're BDD, is seeing how far you can push the envelope on side laning, see how many minions you can get. As this time, it's ㅣFaker who's out in the open.
Yeah, he kind of got caught out here by himself in a 1v1 position, but he will have a lot of help from his teammates. With the stopwatch coming in, looks like ㅣFaker is in a bit of trouble, though. Kana trying to help out here, as Rascal is going to get booped down. But you can see the damage that BDD does do, even just on the 1.5 items. Kana is going to have to get out of here. Clid not going to be able to catch up, so we'll just end up
Well?
It's
Udyr Valdez, never underestimate.
Blast Plan's pretty strong, I guess.
Blast Plants, man, he's going in. But yeah, that was a really brilliant play from Gen G to actually have that aggression there against ㅣFaker, into being a side lane mismatch up there. And, okay.
I don't know why we're face checking here, to be honest. Cuz is 1v4 at this point in time, and he is going to ult over the wall as the true shot barrage is just barely not going to hit him.
Cuz is teasing us with that one.
Now you can see Rascal, you know, Gen G are beginning to feel it. They can feel like kind of the cracks in the armor right now, saying, okay, you're getting a little bit frisky. If we can catch you out a couple times, then we immediately get back into this game.
Oh, for sure. That's why, you know, T1 need to be on they need to be, like, putting ㅣFaker out here by himself against a Camille is such a risky play. And you can see how this exchange happens. Like, he ends up hitting the root, which is pretty huge, but Rascal gets out of it right away. Teddy comes in, and he has the charm, and yet still ㅣFaker dies here. And Kana handles this pretty well, ends up getting the cask to lock Rascal in and then follows up, but he almost dies here because you could see he's built full damage, and like BDD's damage goes through that so quickly because he's starting to scale up. He's got his Void Staff online now. So you really have to be careful about getting caught out as T1 because you will be punished so hard for it.
Oh, the cask actually doesn't work because he was ever frosted to the ground, but this is a very fast Nautilus coming on in, as the hook shot is nicely buffered, but it is not going to matter too much. As 3v1 under the turret, that's the power of this comp. Like, you're not really safe under any turrets as anyone on the side of Gen G.
Yeah, I think if T1 continue to group like this, and you trade a top turret for a bot turret like this, but this time it's an inner turret versus an outer turret for T1, you're very happy to kind of play this game. It's like trading up in chess when you're ahead pieces, and then suddenly, okay, T1 is like, okay, well, I'm ahead now, and I have more of the map controlled because, yeah, I'll give you an outer turret for an inner turret, and then when the next Drake comes up, which is Infernal Soul, by the way, which is really important to deny, especially against Gen G's comp, then you have better position on those Drakes, as we'll watch this again. You know, there's no way out of this one for Rascal, unfortunately. The Everfrost anti-synergy there with the cask is kind of funny, but even still, unfortunately, he's not able to escape. Everybody is all grouped up, and I think if you group up like this to make sure you guarantee turrets, you're going to have a much better time as T1 right now, because you really just need to make sure you get objective after objective and don't get out-rotated.
Yeah, for sure. And Gen G, they're just going to try to hold on here. You mentioned that one Cloud Drake that they got in the beginning of the game. That's actually incredibly important, right? It gives them an extra buffer. 5 minutes, 6 minutes to farm up and potentially get your split push online, because if you don't have that, you don't have much, right? And even if you are losing Infernal Drakes, you know, they're going to be decent for the side of T1, especially because the Gragas is going damage. You have the damage coming out from the Senna, which is going to be huge as well, and amplified with that Infernal Drake. But you said it before, the most important thing is denying it away from Gen G and their incredible amounts of damage that they have in their composition, and making the 0 and 4 Camille actually turn into a crazy late game champion if they do pick up any of those Infernal Drakes.
Because of how T1 are building too, like, it does end up being really good for the Gragas. Like, the extra damage in Seraphine, you know, her damage is quite meager in general compared to other mid laners, but that's going to change that.
Split
to get them all. It's like, I'm Udyr!
He almost dodged that ultimate.
Yeah.
And now we do have the rotation coming in. Chemtank is available for Keria, but he's not even going to use it. He's just letting Cuz chip away at Clid here. Cuz has to be careful, though, and now Cuz is just going to get caught out as the Encore is on to one member, and Teddy and ㅣFaker are here all alone. Gen G find the opportunity to get on in there. The double kill comes in from the Udyr. Now Big Boy Kana is here. Can he turn this one around? Doesn't look like the answer is yes, as Rascal is frontlining now for his team. Keria just trying to sacrifice to save the rest of his lineup, as T1 are desperate to try to disengage here on a very wonky And not a great engage there in the top lane.
And can I bring everyone's attention to the top left of your screens where the Infernal Drake is now live as this is happening. This comes up as T1 get pushed back. Genji need to be careful about over-chasing here because respawns are coming up and T1 can contest this. But the timing of this overextension from Cuz could not be worse, right? Like this is exactly when the Drake comes up and this is what you cannot have happen. Why take a risk and actually go for a chase on an Udyr as T1 here when you could just walk and get Drake prio?
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of an interesting arcane shift there from Ruler as T1 are still chasing. They want more. They want to kill something. They're angry. And yes, they're going to get BDD, but that is about it. They're trying to go and take the Baron off of this kill.
Yeah, I think this is what you have to try if you're T1 here because you have enough of an advantage. Unfortunately, they lost a lot of their power in that last exchange, right? They don't have the Hecarim ult. They're not going to have an explosive cast. They will have the Seraphine ult going into this, which is really great at preventing people from collapsing in.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they don't have all the tools here, so it's a little bit risky, but I think it's worth a shot.
Like you said, I think you have to try, right? You just gave up the Infernal Drake.
Gotta trade it for something.
And you're 5v4 here, so everybody dodges the True Shot Barrage, and that's actually a lot of damage denied from the Ezreal. Ruler is trying his best to try to chip away at the front line here, but it's not really working out too well. They're going to try to zone away Klid. Not super successful, but they do have the damage onto the Baron, and it will be enough. No steal is going to come in here, as the cast from Kana is going to separate everybody. The Encore does nothing, as Klid is going to have to back away. They want more. Oh, Rascal's getting in there. That's pretty interesting, as Ruler just immediately dies, and now Rascal is all alone. Not sure about this one, Wolf. We're just turning it into a total clown fiesta in this game.
I mean, they really thought they were going to be able to force this into a Hextech Ultimatum, gets a pick, and then all the Ruler damage comes through the fall, but they can't. They can't do it. Oh,
we're still going. Cuz is like so angry after his play up on the top side. And you know what? I suppose he's making up for it. And we're just not ending.
This actually...
We're just not ending.
Yeah, this could end up being... well, this could be ending if anyone else gets picked. I mean, we are getting later on into the game. They have Baron buff. This is going to be an inhibitor, at least you would think. They're going to reset first, and they still have 2 minutes on this Baron buff, but the chase through was just absolutely crazy, and they do get the pick on the BDD here early on to set up for this Baron take. They have Seraphine's ult, which is really nice for disengage when the commitment comes through. It doesn't end up working out here for Faker, like he doesn't really end up catching anyone. But the issue is when they overextend chasing. Like, unfortunately, Genji, you didn't get it, okay? And right now you're 4v5 as BDD is not here yet, but Rascal says, I am. It goes through, and it's his Hextech Ultimatum is stopwatched.
Yeah, and
so
Keria hooks Ruler and 100 to zeros him with the team, so there's just zero follow-up.
BDD just isn't here for this fight, and you're way too overextended, Rascal, in this moment. And this almost feels like pent-up frustration from Genji more than anything else to actually continue to chase there, forcing a fight where it's like, you already lost the objective, you're not going to win this one, and Life gets one more shield and then goes down. Yeah.
You said pent-up frustration for Genji. I feel like T1 are also exhibiting that here in this game. It's just getting your frustrations out for both of these teams here in Game 1. Already 18 kills in 27.5 minutes. Pretty good for this matchup. As now with the Baron, T1 looking to push in and take away the one inhibitor for now.
Yeah, and then they can just rotate mid and try to repeat that. Right now, Rascal is hovering around, potentially setting up a split push if they do go hard. He does get the Rift Sculler, and he might be able to put a little bit of pressure on. Going to take the Krugs. He can also set up for maybe trying to trade this into a Drake, but I mean, the timing of this is so unfortunate for Genji, because T1 can get this and then rotate over. Like, if we were 30 seconds away, it'd be a different story, but they can't trade this, so they're just going to lose 2 inhibitors, and there's nothing they can do about it. Klid needs to be careful. He's so far out.
Yeah, you see that Rascal doesn't group up. There's no reason for him. Like, he might as well just try to eke out as much gold on the map as he possibly can, right? So he's taking the Krugs. It looks a little bit silly, but it's actually the right thing, because even if he's there, I mean, he can't do anything about it. So.
He also was able to clear out vision on the Drake, grab a scuttle. Like, he's gotten value to really. Also, the wave was so pushed, like, there was not much he could do. Like, are you really going to try to get an inner turret on the top, or the bottom side of the map, excuse me, to, like, while this is happening, you're just putting yourself at risk. So it looked a little bit awkward, but I mean, at least they know that they have vision control for the moment, and they're going to see T1 when they arrive here with the Scuttler. Now the question is, can Gen G take this fight, though, for this next Infernal Drake? Because with these super minions coming through, I don't think they realistically can.
No, it doesn't look like it.
Well, that's why that buffer that we were talking about earlier is so important. The fact that they got that first Drake, which means this is the first Infernal Drake, not the second here, not the third Drake for T1.
Why are T1 not just taking the Infernal Drake here?
That's a little bit weird.
They're really trying to push the issue with the push. And yes, you can force 5v5s if you do that, but you're also diving turrets, and it can get a little bit dicey.
They realize, but
yeah,
that was a little bit... like, I think if you're T1, you want to get this as fast as possible. You're hoping for the next Infernal Drake. Like, you want to keep that timer as short as possible. As True Shot Barrage, it was a cool idea, but no information whatsoever to steal that one away. They do end up getting it. The kind of happy feeding around the mid lane there meant that they lose a little bit of time on inhibitors without gaining anything, and this next Infernal Drake lose a few seconds on the speed of which that's going to come up.
Oh boy.
Oh no.
I think Rascal's just dead here. He is he's surprisingly tanky. It doesn't matter. As Kana is legendary. 8-0 on AP top Gragas. Give this guy the player of the game already, because he has just totally owned this one and smurfed in the top lane.
I mean, he is doing so well. It's like actually insane what he's been able to accomplish. And a matchup we thought was going to be stable, but you know, it's difficult. But if you play it right, you hit those casts correctly, you know, under turret when you see Could come through, it's like, okay, this could go well for him. He had one of the highest isolated deaths actually across the league in the top lane because of his overextensions, his aggression in the top side of the map, how many times he died solo. But he's, in fact, just stomping it right now. It feels like 2020 Kana all over again. And T1 have not played a perfect game by any means. There have been some small micro decisions they've made around, you know, team fights or around some macro decisions too, like where they're going to be on the map, how quickly they didn't take that Infernal Drake. But they have such a lead right now because of how this top side of the map went, and just by the nature of how Senna scales up, that it's very difficult to imagine Gen G coming back into this game now. Once the inhibitors are gone, they don't have side lane pressure. Like, this is what happens when you try to side lane. Uh-oh, you get caught, you get punished. And, you know, how do you get back into the game here, unfortunately, anymore? For Gen G, it's so difficult. They have the damage scaling, but they are never going to have control of the map ever again.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting, too, that Kana did go for the AP Gragas, because it feels like this is the one way that you actually handle the Camille through, you know, through the mid game and even up to the later stages of the game, if you're this far ahead, right, in this current scenario. If you're just the tank Gragas, I think you lose a lot of the value. So I like the choice of the item builds that he does go for here. T1 pretty comfortably just going to run at the Baron here. It is spotted.
Yeah, this is the vision control I was talking about. They see it, but they can't rotate it once those are cleared. I mean, how do you walk in here safely with all the lockdown, all the wombo, all the ultimates that come through the Team 1 to shut you down when you group up? It's so difficult to engage. Clid's trying to bait it.
Yeah, look at that. Oh, they're going to land the root here, and they actually catch two. Here we go. The Hecarim goes in, and down goes the Karma to start us off. Kana does take a lot of damage in the front line. BDD does his ultimate for about zero reason. Tries to put up a wall, potentially. As now Rascal up on the top side getting caught out, but here on the right, Keria is looking to engage. BDD desperately trying to 1v5, but is not going to be able to. They need to get onto Ruler, though, who is actually doing a lot of damage by himself, but now all alone, and the range of Teddy is just going to slap him down as
King's coming through. They want to end this game right now. They're going to reset. They've got teleports, Kana and Faker. And I mean, look, we talk about all the wombo potential, the Seraphine ult, the Encore that can come through with the Hecarim ult. It's actually a Senna that gets a double root that starts the fight off for T1. Like, that's not the one we're even talking about. That's not even supposed to happen.
Against Studier.
Yeah. It's like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
Oh, man. This is great game for T1 to start us off.
Yeah, people are going to look at the scoreline and they're going to see Kana and they're going to be like, how did that happen? Like, how is this possible? Well, the guy just had an incredible game, and T1 really showed up to play tonight. A fantastic showing in game number 1, going the way of T1 this time around. And Gen G are going to have to mix something up.
I mean, I really liked Gen G's draft better. honestly, I really thought Faker was going to have serious problems dealing with BDD's Azir and the Udyr that comes with it. Like, you think about how well Udyr pairs with the mid and top side of the map for kill pressure when it's Azir versus Seraphine, and then Camille into Gragas. Yeah, Gragas can hold his own under turret in some of those exchanges, but he was actually winning those micro trades over and over and over again. And the Udyr spent most of his time on the bottom side of the map. So T1 ended up getting a nice lead, and they kind of compound that into controlling objectives. Even though they lost that first Drake, they just took every single fight after that, and Kana was a menace. And every single time, Rascal was like, well, I'm still Camille. Let me see how this goes. He said no. And this was a great game for T1 to bounce back after what has been a very up and down roller coaster of a second round robin here. And it's you know, rosters like this where you can see those hard decisions being made for T1, and I really like to see it. There were some holes, there were some small issues, right, with how they played. There were a few decision-making issues where, you know, against a team that wasn't that far behind, things could have been a problem. But this is promising so far. Like, I'm a little bit excited about this T1 roster right now.
No, I mean, that's it's certainly very obvious when you have a performance like that maybe now is the time to stop swapping people in and out. But it was just the one game. I think that it was more so T1 playing really well rather than like Gen G playing poorly. You mentioned like they could have been playing a lot more around the top side, right? I think that's one thing that Gen G probably should have done.
Yeah.
I think Clid was basically just doing the herbivore thing where he's like, I'm going to kill all the monsters the fastest way possible. Whereas maybe putting more pressure onto that Gragas that's not even tanky, right? He's going AP. You could have potentially tried to go for some early dives, but they didn't do any of that. And what ended up happening is that Cuz is like, well, I guess I'll just, you know, I'll hit level 6 and eventually we'll just kill this Camille. We have so much CC. I mean, Gragas and Hecarim are ridiculous when you compound that CC together. So basically Gen G did nothing. T1 took the reins, and then all of a sudden they just ran away with the game.
Yeah, let's take a look at the damage numbers across the board here as we go into this game too, or into this post-game rather. And I mean, you can see the damage for Gragas is actually insane. Like, he out-damaged Ruler, who was starting to become a menace in the late game. So was BDD, but unfortunately T1 just didn't give them those opportunities to take straight-up team fights because they always had control over the map after they got those inhibitors. Are you going to walk into Seraphine, Hecarim, Gragas, right, and into these fights? Apparently Senna as well. It can be a big issue trying to walk into those Baron fights when you don't have vision. T1 have control of the map. It's a big problem, and it felt like, you know, to be honest, Clid was trying to beat Cuz rather than win the game, like in terms of controlling the jungle, denying scuttles, and that didn't work. That was not the goal of the composition, and I'm hoping that Gen G can bounce back and we can have a really good series here, and I think we will. I think this game is an isolated mini game kind of situation where like Khan actually ran away with the game, Clid didn't have a good Udyr game. I think we're in for a close best of 3, though, still.
Yeah, sometimes you get the one guys or the two guys that end up smurfing and take the game and just win it for you, and that kind of happened this time around. But T1, great performance in game number 1. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will get into the second game of the night.
해봐. 뒤에 날렸어.
카메 볼게.
아주 누구?
카메 봐줘.
아질.
아디를 볼게. 아디로 볼게.
이제 높이. 이제 방금 높여.
야 가지마.
아 가지마 유지롭게.
가지마. 유지.
맞아. 야 미드가. 야 카메.
미드 라인 클리 없어.
미드할게 미드. 나 테레.
해봐가.
나은 거 같아.
킬 그만 봐. 나 공 15초. 킬 그만 봐.
끝나겠다 이 정도면 근데. 끝나니까 아무 할게 이거는.
나 공 돼. 좀 더 놀아도 돼.
사이드 갈때 킬 그만 봐라 이거.
편하게 합시다 편하게.
강화 잘해보자.
잘해보자잉. 확인이요 확인팅.
야 바론 갈란다
야 쳤어. 얘들아 쳤어.
이거 이제 포켓몬 기획이네 괜찮아
우정 위로 돌아봐.
볼게.
위로 돕게
아 위로 돌아봐.
크게 쪼여 천천히
오케이 위치 보면서 천천히 할게.
다 높여.
아 시즈이드 좀 오케이 나 여기서 빠져야 돼
들어와줘 얘들아 들어와줘. 베인 높여.
나 빼야 돼
잡아봐. 야 쭉 가봐.
매매매매
오른쪽 기다리 따라가봐. 동범이.
오케이.
야 탑미드 밀자.
한 명만 붙어주면 앞에서 다 지울 수 있긴 해 내가.
우리 붙여서 하자 이거.
얘네 시야 없다.
나는 텔로 할 수 있어 탑 지금 푸시 였고 출발할게
대봐.
한번 해보자.
야 룰러. 야 죽이고 미드가 끝나 얘들아. 천천히 얘들아. 끝났어. 넥서스 얘들아. 넥서스 깨 얘들아. 넥서스. 파워 쳐봐.
못 끝내겠는데 이거?
까비. 괜찮아.
너 쳐줘야 돼
한대 써봐. 두 번에 써.
너 만화가 없어.
잘했다.
야 근데 마지막에 뭐 했냐 다들?
몰라겠다. 씨. 이겼으면 됐다. 그냥 일단.
한판 붙들어 갑시다. 초반에
커였네. 왜 저래 갑자기?
시야 압박 주면 푸시로 밀어내면. 지금 파이크만 먼저 오고 여기. 이거 한번 살짝 토스 봐도 돼.
타이거 잡았어. 나이스. 집중하자.
천천히 하면 이긴다.
4명 다 정면.
야궁 그어놨어. 야 갈렸다 얘네.
파이크 2 없고. 싸요. 나 매우 맞은 거야 매우. 가이사.
괜찮아.
나 매우 맞아서.
오케이. 신난다 터져서 매운 맞아서 그런 거야?
나 몰라.
얘네 친다.
탈 찍었다.
들어가 있을게 조냐 때문에.
셀핑공. 빠졌고.
야 얘네
좋아.
잡아.
좋아. 나 터졌고. 천천히 해. 한대 빼고.
앞라인 새거 없어 이거. 얘네 앞라인 아예 없다.
그거 나봤고. 야 나 스마 10초 천천히 해봐.
10초래.
천천히 해
야 지금부터 딜할게.
먹어봐.
뒤에 파이크
앞으로 뚫을게.
있어,
앞으로 가자. 미드 가자. 미드 라인.
세라핀만 잡고 갈게.
침착해.
끝났어. 아 근데 내가 왜 이렇게 운영을 못할까 얘들아.
사이언 5초다. 아직 안 끝났어.
카이사 10초.
같이 끝내줘.
아 얘들아 킬놀이지 마.
이겼다.
나 진짜 미안하다 얘들아. 형이 운영 진짜. 아 근데 형이 진짜 못한다 운영.
야 오늘 캐리할 사람 너희들이다.
뭔 소리야, 리엔즈잖아. 어떻게 캐리해?
그럼 왜 누가 캐리하는데?
미드가 캐리해야지.
왜 미드가 캐리해? 검은 머리 선아이 얼마나 잘하는데?
갑자기 안 하던 애 하려고 하지 말고 라인이 먼저 와.
7초 뒤에 바텀 나만 텔제. 5초 뒤에. 안 돼?
노플?
앞을 봐도 돼. 앞을 봐봐. 뭐야? 나이스.
이것도 잡았다.
헤카림 킬. 나이스.
김호링.
좋습니다. 불러.
자식 저리가입니다.
위험한데?
아이고 진짜 죄송
건배 일로 와봐.
진짜 죄송.
야,
보자. 와 김건부 내가 살렸다. 뭐하냐 소리. 수면.
나 이제 갈게.
터보공 탱크.
우리 용 빨리 가야되긴 해. 우디로 용 뜬다.
조이 미친 연계. 근데 건부야 너
아,
안 죽긴 하는데 딜이 생각보다 없는데?
형 이런 형이 나와야지 무슨 소리야.
빼면서 야 카밀 잡았어 앞에 반월
앞에 방어
카밀 잡았어 카밀 반월과 나 우디를 잡을게
안발 죽었어.
인데
비벼 그냥. 땀내나게 비벼. 땀내나게. 사우나야. 그냥 비벼.
아 따뜻하다 할지
어우 따뜻하다 야.
여기가 불가봐야
아니 그 이어만 김범부 거 말 달리자 개 찍었어.
우물킬 우물킬? 우물킬?
나 술통 하나 깔아놓을게.
오케이 잘
야.
가고.
대회가 장난이야? 헤카림?
대회가 장난이야?
웃음기 안 빼지 너.
너 뭐 재밌어? 그만큼 신나시는 거겠지. 예 카밀
뭘 카밀이야? 빨리 밀어.
그만큼 신나신 거겠지.
어우 덥다.
That's good. Today we'll be joined by Chang and me, P3 and Gorilla. Welcome. And this is Season with the translation, and we are now seeing some of the shaping off of the playoff seed. Heading into the last weeks of the Spring Split, T1 takes game number 1. They made a lot of change in their roster and also in their draft. ㅅFaker picked his 64th champion of his entire career, Seraphine mid, and this actually was a huge buff for the Hecarim as well, boosting his movement speed up. Hecarim was available, a very high tier champion in the current meta, and with this Hecarim as a main character, T1 was able to finish up their pick and ban around this pick. And Seraphine could have been a flex pick for support role as well. The second rotation of the pick and ban, Gragas and Nautilus was the ones to close out T1's comp, and well, their comp didn't look that ideal from the get-go, but T1 was able to pilot this comp really well with their mechanical level. Even though Genji completed their top side comp really early, T1 was able to counter them with their gameplay. So Seraphine is a champion that is really weak to kind of dive comp, but comp that has really strong teamfight engages. But Genji on their side, they didn't have enough tools to open teamfight or force open fights into T1, and T1 was able to have a very smooth game up against Genji's comp by getting ahead in the early game. Camille, Azir, Ezreal. Well, I guess those kind of DPS champions didn't find the right time to build anti-healing items, so this also added more time for T1 to keep pushing their momentum forward. And with this sustainability, T1 was able to pick up most of the wins in this game, and also even though Ezreal was doing a lot of work in order to chunk down the T1's members, that was not enough in order to out-damage the healing coming out from Seraphine and Senna. Now let's take a look at this first replay. Camille was able to actually win the topside fight around the Herald. And Udyr, because he was clearing out the vision, he revealed himself to the T1's vision, which means T1 had this agenda to take fight on the top lane, and then Senna was also able to pick up assist with that ultimate from downtown. Prior to this fight, T1 was not able to secure that Herald, but still they were in a good spot to push this issue forward. So because T1 had this information that Camille would like to kind of play around the top side using the Herald, they also moved faster than the Genji's top side player. They were already on the top side in order to punish the upcoming plays from Genji. Looking at their draft, Genji was not having a lot of priority in terms of the champion matchup as well, so they were not able to come out stronger than T1. Now let's take a look at this fight after T1 took the Baron. Kana actually got a pick onto Azir prior to this Baron try, and then T1 secured their Baron. Yes, Genji was having a bit of a lead at this point, but still T1 was not that behind. So Rascal went in to re-engage, however, he got instantly body slammed by that Gragas, and then his ultimate also gets neutralized by Gragas Zhonya's. And then because of that hook, Israel immediately got deleted in this fight. Because Genji knew that if they let T1 walk away like this, there was no way for them to come back after this huge win. So they wanted to pick up some kills and make a trade after the T1's Baron, but still that was not enough, and Genji did not have enough tools to win teamfight into T1's comp. And I think T1 is slightly ramping up, heading towards the playoff, and the POG will go over to Kana on Gragas, legendary Gragas in this game, and the solo kill machine Kana is back. He's been absent in the LCK for about 40 days, and he's been hitting rank 1 in Korean solo queue ladders, and now we can see his solo queue performance is slowly channeling into his LCK performance as well. Rascal seemed to be a little bit more shaky into this matchup versus Kana, and the way Kana used his cask body slam were really on point. Gragas, well, his Q skill will get nerfed in the upcoming patch, but in this game, Kana actually maxed his body slam first. So he was able to keep adding pressure on that top lane up against Rascal, and unanimous POG secured by Kana with that perfect performance. It's been a while since we saw him on the Rift, but it's really nice to see him with an evolved performance. Now we're heading into game number 2 between Genji and T1. Is it gonna be a repeat of 2020 Spring Split final, or will Genji come back stronger in game number 2?
Thank you so much, G-Sun, once again for the wonderful translation of the analyst desk. As good to see Kana getting the respect he deserves. He totally owned the lane and totally ended up owning the game. Became legendary by the end of it, had 9 kills, 0 deaths.
9 votes for his 9 kills in the end, and I mean, Cuz had a fantastic game as well, but I feel like the top lane matchup, which is where Genji was supposed to try to get control in this game, he controlled it, he crushed it, like he turned it on its head so hard that everything that Cuz did from then on was so much easier than it was supposed to be.
It certainly helps when you get mega accelerated to Everfrost and then you're a level up on a Camille, right? It's just like, okay, well, good luck, Camille, you can't do anything. Like, you just can't even enter the lane. You dominate the lane, and then they had that team fight around the Rift Herald, and after that, it just felt like the game was over, and it absolutely was. And I don't know what happens to Genji sometimes against T1. They just forget how to play, and you know, they certainly did not look like the number 2 team in the LCK in the beginning of that game, and they really had to get stuff going in that game, and they did the exact opposite of that. Wolf.
Yeah, the early game was a big problem. The drafting, you know, there's a lot of debate, even amongst our talent crew out here, actually, as to who won the draft. I personally thought I liked Genji's draft a lot more. It wasn't utilized correctly. But I think this game is kind of one of those isolated scenarios. It happens all the time in best of 3s, which is why I'm so glad we still have that, you know, that format here in the LCK. Because sometimes you have a bad game and you don't execute on your draft, but then you come back in games 2 and 3, you get the reverse sweep, you play your game better, or you change up your style a little bit and you catch the other team off guard, or you just end up playing to your strengths better. Like, sometimes you have a fluke game, and I feel like this one game was kind of an isolated incident. And if someone stopped me right now and said, who do you predict to win the series, given what we saw in game 1, I would still predict Genji to come back. I think they are the stronger team even still. But with a draft like that going that badly, I mean, the rest of the game is just kind of, you're playing with one hand tied behind your back.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you know, what happens? The whole house of cards comes crashing down, right? You feel good about the draft. I wouldn't even be surprised if they don't mix anything up here, right? They do ban away the Senna, which is a change, right? They leave the Twisted Fate available. So you can see that T1 are thinking about it. You know, do we go for the Hecarim this time? Do we go for the Seraphine? It's clear that they want to pick these picks that they feel like together have so much synergy, which they do, and have incredible team fight potential. And they're going to go ahead and pick up the Seraphine. BDD says, well, let's run it back.
Valdez, we might... Okay, well, never mind, because they're going to grab the Udyr instead of grabbing the Camille. I was just saying, we might actually get a almost repeat draft where we get to actually have the same
Still
sort
good.
of... I mean, we still definitely could. And, like, this could be a really fantastic moment for Gen G to actually showcase, like, why their comp still works if they have a better game, if Rascal actually plays the top side a lot safer than he did previously. This could end up being really awesome. Obviously, there's not going to be a Senna in this game. It's not going to be exactly the same drafts, but it's already starting off to be very similar. Even with sides swapped here, the priority is the same, and it will be Teddy picking up the Kai'Sa. And, you know, we didn't even get to talk about Teddy that much on the last game. He had some really cool global ults, but because the team fights were so stompy and were so wombo-y from T1 that we didn't really even get to see what Teddy could have done if they were behind. A lot of the pressure would have been on him. And we're going to see the Camille, so we are basically going to get a rematch of Game 1.
We're doing the salty run back here in the LCK.
I want to see a Gragas ban here from Gen G. I mean, Gragas Scion ban, and then see how differently this one looks, maybe, right? Like, I'm a little bit worried, because if they do ban the Gragas and then leave the Scion open, then Kana could just play Scion. It's not going to be the same type of game. Like, he's not going to be crushing it and stomping the lane. But he can scale up really well, and then he works well with Seraphine. So you have two options here for your T1 if that's left open.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think as Gen G, you immediately have to remove those gigantic tanks that become even more obnoxious with the Seraphine behind them. And, you know, with the Kai'Sa already picked here, their team fighting is already insane. And if they get a big tank to fight behind, like, I'd even go as far as to say that even if Scion gets banned, pick Ornn or pick Malphite or pick anything.
Or
like,
the Kaiser.
I don't know about that, but, you know, like, just pick some kind of beefy boy. They're going to ban away the Kennen here, which is pretty interesting. I don't know about that.
The Kennen serves a very similar role to the Gragas in terms of how the matchup can be played, or how Kana played it, let's just say, because usually, you know, Gragas plays a little bit more tanky and plays more defensively, but that didn't happen last game. The explosive power of a Kennen who does get ahead. I mean, this almost feels like insurance in this ban for Gen G. Like, let's make sure that they don't get another explosive top AP champion that is going to destroy us in team fights. There's a lot of lockdown onto Ruler here. They banned not the Ezreal, but in fact the Xayah and Tristana responses to the Kai'Sa. So banning for the meta rather than the player, I would argue. And if Aphelios is left open, they'll take it. There's no Thresh, obviously, to pair with it.
Yeah, this is pretty interesting. You know, if you go Aphelios and Nautilus, then you immediately bolster your team fighting ability as well, right? You already have the Azir, and Camille, while she is a really strong split pusher, can enter some of those fights, especially when you have your own kind of hyper carry and plus Stanky Boy down on the bottom side. As T1, they're thinking about what they're going to go for. It looks like Leona will be the pick. They really want to get on top of the Aphelios, who will not have the option to have the Thresh alongside of him for mobility.
It's a lot of discussion as to, you know, where this top pick goes right now. And with the Leona lock-in, there were a lot of different options. Like the set could have been mid, Seraphine could have been support, but now Leona comes through. And they're going to take what looks like a pretty stable Nara pick here into the Camille. This has been very high variance. Like, it's a volatile matchup where you can get absolutely crushed by somebody like Rascal in the top lane, as Taric would be a very, very sturdy choice here, and actually works extremely well with this comp in terms of team fights. So I don't hate it, but very off meta right now.
Yeah.
And I'll take the Galio instead, which is going to be great into the Leona, the Gnar, and the Hecarim in particular.
Yeah, pretty cool idea. Something you've highlighted many times in the past, right? The potential for just absorbing engage with his taunts. You know, you don't always have to be the guy that's flashing in and making the crazy, you know, 5-man taunt plays. You can just be a soaker, an amazing peeler for your AD carry. And while you don't have the lantern that the Thresh does, you have the ability to kind of immediately taunt off whoever tries to dive onto the Aphelios. So I like the idea.
The top side of the map here, you know, from mid and upwards for both of these teams remains largely the same in terms of the idea here. The Gnar is another champion that, you know, you can go, well, he can be stable under turret, can be tough to win the matchup, but it's also a champion that if given a lot of resources and if Rascal is once again neglected by Klid, he can get ahead, he can trade back some kills if Cuz comes up there, and he can start to bully the Camille. It is possible, but this feels like it's going to be a lot harder of a variation here for T1 to execute on to have that same sort of success for Kana in the top side of the map. So maybe, just maybe, this Rascal-Klid duo of Camille and Udyr can get more value done this time. Maybe we could see that converted into some more kill pressure in mid. We didn't see even one Emperor's Divide attempt to try to get Flash away from Faker in that last game. So again, proactivity is the name of the game here once again for Gen G. They have a comp that scales better in the late game, but you need to get that Camille fed early so she can have that side lane pressure, so Udyr can help you on those later fights.
Absolutely. We'll see if they have woken up after game number 1. I think that a lot of Gen G fans would be disappointed with the way game 1 went. They kind of just laid back and didn't do much and then kind of lost the game without doing anything. So a bit more proactivity, as you mentioned, and just taking better fights as well. Like some of the decisions that were made in the early game fights in game number 1 were not the best. If you can kind of shore those up and clean things up a little bit in the early game, even if you don't get ahead, I think, as you mentioned, their scaling is quite nice, and you do have some good chances to just eventually scale on and win the game. I think everybody's hoping, if you're just you know, a neutral observer and you're looking to enjoy some League of Legends, we're hoping for 3 games.
I really am. And what I want more than anything else, to be honest, just like on a personal level, is for T1 to perform well in all 3. And already the first game was a pretty good start, pretty good indicator of that. And, you know, Faker, as mentioned on the analyst desk, we didn't talk about it too much. It's his first career game with Seraphine last game. This is now his second. He played against
64th unique
64th
champion?
unique champion he's played in the mid lane. He played against Seraphine earlier this season when he played against Umti, actually, I think it was, who was flexing in because Lava was sick that day.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was like set to the Seraphine he played, but he's he showcased, obviously, that he knows how to deal with this matchup, which is not easy for the Seraphine. I think, actually, that might have been Seraphine's first win in LCK this season versus Azir. But, yeah, it's definitely a matchup that's tough, and he played really well around it. And let's see if he can do it again. I'm very excited to see, like, you know, an almost rematch of the first game draft, or very similar.
Mm-hmm. Very similar ideas. I think the biggest change is the bottom lane of Gen G, right? You go on to a bit more of a hyper carry with the Aphelios compared to the Ezreal. They both have strong late games, but the Aphelios can do some crazy stuff. As we're getting the engage down the bottom side, Life has to flash away, and look at that burst damage. Life not really going to be able to do much in this lane from here on out. Throwing up the peace sign to Zcaria. Really enjoying that fight.
A lot of respect shown from Life, but I really appreciate the flash. If another Zenith comes off cooldown, he dies. And with no minions there, he knows that it's going to be very difficult to avoid the Void Seeker. So he just wanted to get out of there, like, straight away. Obviously, you know, you can heal that up pretty quickly, but losing your flash this early on is going to make this a little bit tougher. It's not a, you know, huge straight-up win, right? Leona versus Galio matchup. It's not like a matchup crusher. And, you know, Aphelios is at his best when you're pulling a Duck Dom and winning lanes so hard that you get turret plates and then get turret plates in the top lane. Don't know if that's going to happen this game. It feels very unlikely in this matchup into the Leona.
Yeah, certainly the Leona was a nice pick there from Keria. You saw that his win rate is 3-0 on the pick. Obviously, very well versed in the power of Leona. We don't see her all the time, right? We see a lot more kind of the Alistair. Obviously, Rel comes in a lot, the Thresh, but not too much Leona.
Yeah, his Thresh is his most played and his best, you know, win rate champion, but his Leona's number 2. I mean, Leona has perfect win rate on it, but he's played less than half the games because he has on the Thresh. And he's also played a billion champions, as we are going to see a nice trade up here for Kana. Is once again just kind of killing it in a matchup that is not easy to do that in.
Yeah.
This is why people were so hyped about Kana in 2020, is he was winning top lane so handedly, even in unfavorable matchups, so often that people are like, this is the solo killer. This is the guy who doesn't need resources in the top lane to get ahead. And that's the story of game one. It feels like we're going back in time here.
Yeah. I mean, it should be clear to a lot of our fans out there that, the players go through swings, right, where they're on top of the world, and then all of a sudden, they go down. It's not always just stable. It's hard for pro gamers to always be, great. As we're having another trade down on the bottom side. Not going to get that last hit onto Life, actually, and you can see Teddy takes enough damage to pressure him off of that. As in comes Cuz. Remember, no flash here on Life, and even through the exhaust, that's going to be the first blood on to that Galio bot. Very well baited into that fight, and even though he was really close to the turret, still able to pick up that kill.
I was literally about to say the words almost came out of my mouth. You could see that Life is really respecting the fact that they don't know if Cuz is here or not because he stayed back so far. And then he walked forward, got Zenith bladed, and then Cuz is able to close that gap so quickly on the Hecarim. So, I thought he was ready, but he was not. And here we go. This is where it starts.
It's what we wanted to see. We wanted to see Khalid up in the top side. He's taken a lot of damage, but 2v1 here. You can imagine that they should get the kill. The flash comes in from Kana as he tries to pick up at least the one onto Khalid, but it does not come through as they will convert on the 2v1.
Keria gonna make this a duo lane in mid just to guarantee that Faker can get this farm safely because he knows BDD is going to be hitting 6 shortly and wants to be able to make sure that lane is shoved when that is the case. So I really like that commitment there to give a little bit of extra space in Faker's most vulnerable moment as BDD hits 6, and that Clit is gone, so you're going to be pretty safe there. But watching this once again here on the bottom side of the map, like Cuz has been here this whole time, they don't have vision, so Life gets hit by the Zenith Blade and backs off. And then it feels like, okay, you could trade back a little bit of damage here, but at this moment, after they toss out the damage, like Life actually tosses that one out, and then he's like, okay, I'm walking away. But he stayed so long there, I don't know if he should have actually even committed that skill shot in. And it's like, easy cleanup from here, and this is just an overextension from Kana. Unfortunately, he almost trades it back.
Yeah.
He is in Meganar, it's the first stun, and has the follow-up leap forward. And there's just too much damage, sadly. Hookshot is dodged, and that's actually what almost gets him to trade back.
Yeah. If he gets in there, maybe gets his boomerang back up, could see a very different trade. As, remember, Life still doesn't have blast, but this time around, Khalid is here, but the 3-on-3, who wins this one? A perfect Hecarim ultimate onto the 3 of them, but with the TP coming in, T1 will try to get out of here. BDD, I don't know what that was. That's going to be a bit of a whoopsie. And now we have the encore that comes in, and Khalid, alongside of Ruler, are going to be rooted up. This is a disaster for Gen G, and T1 easily clean up. 4-0 on Teddy now.
Teddy's got the jaw hitting the floor laugh after that trade, as we're going to see X-Tech Ultimatum under turret here. Kana is very free to just trade this back, and he's about to hit Meganar. Got to be careful there, Rascal. But yeah, that Emperor's Divide was going in the wrong direction, and I mean, this is really, like, it was a good rotation, and it was a nice response from BDD. The teleport was good, but the execution of that fight is rough. And why are you taking that exchange when, once again, you don't know where Cuz is? It's really easy for him to have a game-changing ultimate there if he is nearby. You're all clumped up, you're hard engaging, grouped. It's not an exchange where everyone's peeled apart and you're trying to actually look for one pick as everybody retreats kind of thing. You just kind of went in head first, right? Like, everybody's grouped up here. Clit is here, so you feel safe. But when you group up like this, on top of one target who's taunted, that gives Cuz the perfect opportunity to hit the triple fear. And then this BDD teleport in is super nice. He Shurima shuffles forward, but then unfortunately pushes Cuz the wrong way. If he hits Cuz the other way, they might trade back 1-for-1, but Faker's here to get the catch with the encore. I mean, it's just so much damage output of this stage. This is a disaster, as you said. And it's all based off of a skirmish on the bottom side that was based on a lie. It was based on the idea of, like, okay, they don't know Clit's here, let's just face roll this. And it was just overall a bad decision because you don't have vision of where Cuz is. And this is the second time in the bottom lane that you're going to give up so much extra gold to Teddy this game. And this is a very rough start. I mean, arguably even worse than last game for Gen G.
Yeah. You can kind of tell that the pressure is getting to these Gen G players, and this is what I was talking about. Just sometimes against T1, it's like they forget how to play. I don't know. I mean, Gen G, BDD is a much better player than that, but then you just have these moments where it's like, man, that's That's not what you expect to see. It's unfortunate, right, for BDDs. Probably going to get ridiculed for that one. But, you know.
And this happens sometimes, right?
Gotta play better than that.
I think this is something that's very, it's not discussed very often in the League of Legends community and in esports in general, that these players are not robots. They are human, and they have off days. They have off sections of a split, right? For example, Kana, the perfect example of this. Incredible 2020, really rough start to 2021. Bounces back immediately in this series. You know, we saw Rich end up pulling somebody into a Lamb's Respite yesterday. Like, these mistakes happen at the highest level. These are not robots. These are humans who make mistakes, right? And, you know, I don't want to ridicule BDD for that one too much, but it's a mistake that's going to cost you big in a critical moment in this game. At T1, they have so many tools. They have so much lockdown. They have a huge fear. They have a huge charm combo that they can set up so easily. And when you try to skirmish like this in the early game, just based off of, I hope they don't know that Clid is here. I hope they don't think Clid's here. I don't know if that's really your win condition at this stage. I think trying to control top and mid is where your resources should be going.
Yeah, you know, it's rough, right? There is potential to try to 3v2, and as you mentioned, if the enemy jungler isn't there, you're pretty golden. But you know, it was also a fantastic timing on the roam by Faker, right? Even if BDD hits that Emperor's Divide, maybe you get the kill on the Cuz.
Yeah, you get one kill back.
He's in such a rough position because he's so far up the lane by himself, basically, and all of his teammates are so low after the Hecarim ultimate, right? So it's like, you know, even though it looks really silly and that's the obvious play, Faker's roam timing is perfect to try to get there on time to deny the teleport play. So either way, we have more plays coming, so we don't have to talk about that one. In goes the Hecarim, and this Kai'Sa is just insane right now. 5-0 after one more kill. As life has to flash away. Faker's here once again, so
when you have so much lane prio like this, Valdez, you could just go around. You can loop around the backside with Hecarim. He's there to scoop up the kills. And you said this to me as soon as game one ended. You were like, I hope you saw the power of Hecarim, because I was saying, you know, I'm not feeling Hecarim right now in LCK. Like, I'm not sure about this champ. Hasn't been that successful here. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the power now.
You feeling it now, Mr. Wolf?
Yeah, that's right.
Rascal tried to go in there. You know, he has the Dark Harvest here on his Omni Stone, but now he actually takes a huge amount of damage, and he's just going to get flashed on. Okay, well, that wasn't flash you were looking for. But at least Rascal gets pushed out of the lane, and Kana will win yet another trade up in the top side.
Yeah, he is up 20 CS. He's going to get another turret plate here, perhaps even two. Like, I don't think you can stop this. He has Demolition, so it's going to be easy. This game is out of control, the lead here for T1. The same sort of things apply in terms of the scaling for Genji once again, and you need to put BDD in the side lanes to get him a lot of extra gold, etc., like we were talking about last time, as all plates go down here on the top side. And, you know, Ruler obviously is on Aphelios, which can scale up, but, like, it's way harder to pull off this Aphelios than it is to pull off the Ezreal, because Ezreal is so much more mobile. He has the ability to chip away at a pretty decent distance to actually get damage done. Aphelios is kind of ammo dependent in that way, doesn't have the same sort of range, does not have an escape, does not have a thresh in this game. So it's even harder, arguably, for the scaling champions of Genji to find that value in those late game team fights. Once again, T1 has neglected to try to take this advantage into a Drake. They're trying to get more gold on the bottom side of the map and on the top side instead. So that does give Genji time, right? A lot of these teams are neglecting getting first Drakes when they don't think it matters as much, and it does give Genji a little bit more objective time, just like last game.
Carrier, where are you going?
Cuz is not here, but he has Flash.
Yeah, and you say Cuz isn't here, but actually, like, you know,
he can be there in a second.
He can be there anytime. We're trying to get on top of EDD. He tries to put up the wall, and he actually is successful there. Cuz is about to run out of the timer on this Rift Herald, so he has to drop this down now. Good timing, too. I mean, the plates are about to go down. So he wants to feed Faker here.
Faker's handling of this matchup and his positioning throughout this entire game, and last game as well, both, you know, Seraphine versus Azir matchups, end up being great. And let's not forget, Faker is the most iconic Azir player of all time, so he understands this matchup very well.
Oh, boy. We're going to get the sun into the wall, and now Rascal, he's just holding on to his Hecarim ultimate. There you go. Yeah, just going to wait for that perfect moment. See if he really needed to use it, because the kill was just so easy, even without it, potentially.
Look at all the wards. Look at all the blue wards on the map, top and bottom. Genji just don't have any vision, so Clid has to stay mid when the Rift Herald gets dropped to make sure that there's no dive on a BDD. T1 know that. They see him not rotating up, and then they make a pick happen. They're going to try to trade this back, though.
Hecarim is just too fast. Like, you're just not going to get on top of him. Now Kana is alone. Yeah, he's the one that does get caught out. Not quite as fast as Hecarim, Udyr, and Brothers.
Yeah, Faker had teleport, but did not want to commit it there. But I really like to see the vision control that T1 have that Clid is now trying to do his best to repel a little bit of, because you can make plays like this on the top side when you know where Clid is and that you can't match that rotation as quickly. Stay a little bit long. They've been a little bit greedy on that, but I would like to point everyone's attention once again to the Mountain Drake that is up. We're almost 15 minutes into the game.
Yeah.
And like, if you're Gen G, I think you're okay with this because, you know, you're not worried about getting that pacing ahead. You actually want to kind of slow the game down for T1, and you're okay with them not taking this fight. So they know, as he walks over a ward, in fact, that there's just no way the Udyr can be here right now. But then, you know, they stay a little bit too long. BD comes up, Clid gets the catch here. And Hecarim, yeah, he's fine. But Kana, not so lucky.
I wish I had 4 legs. Yeah, doesn't quite have it. At least he's got a tail, I guess.
He could have if he had Mega Noir, but he didn't, so.
Yeah, true. Aren't those his arms, though? Just like kind of bent over? I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard, you know, it really depends on like where you're going from a lore standpoint.
Yeah, I don't know my Gnar anatomy too well. Didn't study that class. Take a look at the difference in the golds in the 80 carry role.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ruler, he just finished his first item recently, whereas Teddy's like, yeah.
Look at the
see you later,
goal.
buddy.
1,600.
Ruler didn't even finish his item yet.
Nope. He's about to come back. He's double buy. He's like, what? Teddy's got the double buy, and yeah, I don't know if he's going to get his item anytime soon, but like, what I wanted to say was, you know, T1 have put so many resources into getting this early item advantage and all this gold lead that they've neglected the Drake, and it actually does go to Gen G, so it's a similar problem to the last game that they might face. But like, I don't know if it's really going to come to that point, because T1 are so ahead that this map belongs to them. They're going to kill this turret before the Rift Herald spawns. So this Rift Herald might actually get a charge. Speed needs to get over here ASAP. This Rift Herald could get a charge on the inhibitor turret if they engage here, and they will.
Ooh, they're going to find Ruler. Thankfully, he took cleanse in this game, but take a look at the damage. I mean, Teddy just hops over the top and says, okay, now you have to leave. Like, please leave, sir. And this feels a lot like game number 1, right? Like, Rascal is having more split push potential because Kana's trying to group up with his team, as an R should, compared to the AP Gragas. But it doesn't really matter, right? Like, the Camille is still very far behind. It's not quite as far behind as the last game. And T1 still have a massive lead in this game. Maybe even more than the last game.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think so. And, you know, like, the Camille is not as far behind in terms of, like, the gold department or the matchup. But with the map, with the 4 turrets that T1 have taken out, like, where do you split push safely? Like, you don't have any options. You don't have any fallback on the map to go, okay, well, I can split push here because we still have the top turret. Maybe I can find something. Not really. You know, you're taking wolves right now because there's no opportunity for you on the map. And if T1 trying to make a play elsewhere, you don't even have a comp that can, like, slow down a Baron while you're pushing elsewhere, for example. You really just don't have tools, and it's not a composition that's terrible in the late game because of the scaling opportunities you have with the Aphelios and the Azir, but the Aphelios still doesn't have his Mythic yet. It's like that far behind, as you pointed out earlier. And the Azir isn't going to be very good when there's no one to support him or peel for him. He has to just play so passively with no turrets to farm under either. Like, it's hard for him to get that gold now. And he just says to sit up here and wait for the waves to come. And T1's like, thank you, we'll take all the control over the map. We'll keep this vision advantage we have.
Yeah. You can see that Gen Z are pretty all in on the split push. They just send Clid to go down here, but take a look at the way that Kana plays it. He just sits here, farms under turret. As long as he doesn't die, T1 are gold, right? If he dies and, you know, turrets start going down and inhibitors getting pressured, then maybe. But if not, then in the 4v4, or even the 4v3, if Udyr is here, the Kai'Sa with 2 items with Collector this early on, you're just never going to win that as Gen G. So yeah. T1, as long as Kana plays safely, they're in just a fantastic spot here to do whatever they want. As, you know, the Hextech Ultimatum, pretty good against Hecarim. Yeah. Pretty good against shutting down that Horsey.
No way out of that one, I'm afraid. The timing of that coming through very well played. So a little bit of greed here from Cuz. Gets punished.
Again, feels a lot like Game 1.
Yeah, it really does. Feels like we're seeing a second version of it. Sequel is often worse than the original.
Yeah.
And in this case, I would tend to agree. But Cuz is just out here by himself, by his lonesome, doesn't have any idea where Rascal is. Gets to avoid, of course, the hook shot with his ultimate, but it's not going to stop the Hextech ultimatum from keeping him locked up.
Yeah. It's like you can avoid 4 champions, but if the Hextech ultimatum gets used, you're just going to die as long as there's too many people there. He's probably just like, well, I'm Heckering with Chem Tank, I'm really tanky, and I have my ultimate available. And Ghost, like, nobody can catch me, right? And then that happens. So he gets his one chance, but he should learn from there.
And even with that pick, you could see that, you know, with no Drake available for the next 45 seconds, Gen G don't really gain anything on the map. They're not even really comfortable trying to clear vision, you know, with those next few seconds they had. You can still see T1 has very deep vision on the top side of the map. And they know that Camille's on bottom side. She's shown herself there several times. So this is just like Teddy going, okay, well, I'm 5-0-0, and I'm just going to keep farming top side. I know Camille isn't anywhere near me. We have vision all around the top side of the jungle, so there's no way that anyone can rotate in to punish me for farming without me seeing it. And then with that same vision control and the top wave push, they can actually start a Baron. And Camille has to back and come over here.
Yeah. So, Gen G, the one way they win this one is they kill Kai'Sa. I think if you don't kill Kai'Sa here, you're probably just going to lose the fight. You could maybe commit, try to get Clid to go for the steal and then back away. But at this point, it looks like T1 just want to turn around on this one. The Encore is pretty lackluster, but still the front-to-back fight is here for T1. They're going to chip away. They catch Rascal, and they don't get much else. So they kill the top laner. But Clid's still with the splash available. There's still that threat of the steal, but T1 far enough ahead that they're just going to start this one up again.
They used all of their, you know, combo tools, though, all of their big ultimates here in this fight. In fact, all 5 of them were used. So this is an opportunity for Gen G to try to front to back, but it's just so difficult.
Another turn is going to come on in here. Cuz no ultimate available. Life just trying to peel for his team. As Ruler does a nice amount of damage here if he is kiting them back, but
they're split.
Yeah, the slow is going to come onto Ruler this time around, and he is not going to 200 years this game, as he will be taken out, and now T1 are considering taking the Baron.
This is such a cool fight, the first part of that fight, where the killer instinct from Teddy is so perfect, because he knows there's actually an invisible line that's drawn by Faker that you can't see, which is his ultimate between the top side of Gen G and where he ults in. And if they try to collapse on him, he's free. And once again, Gen G going to try to deny this.
Yeah, trying to ult on a Clid. Keria is going to die. This is going to come to a 50-50. It goes to the Clid. The Udyr steals the Baron away.
Unbelievable.
And now they're going to get the double fear, but that is big for Gen G. They buy some time picking up that Baron away from T1.
Unfortunately, the players who are going to have the Baron here for Gen G are ones that are not going to be able to do anything on the map right now, but it is a huge denial. Watch this killer instinct from Teddy here as he goes through, like, there's so much peel, and then Teddy's here and he's like, okay, Faker actually cuts this in half. Rascal, you can't be here, or you're going to get charmed, you're going to get cut in half by this ultimate combo that comes through. Cuz is there as well.
We actually have a big fight happening right now. This is for the Ocean Drake, and the second Kai'Sa arrives, you turn tail and you run.
You're already outnumbered here.
It's 9-0.
Yeah, you're outnumbered. You're against a fed Kai'Sa. You can't be here.
Teddy's like kiting the blue buff while he's getting a kill. There's just nothing he can do. He is the sheriff, and he tells you where you can and cannot go on this rift.
I mean, this is starting to look like an unsurmountable lead. We're getting closer and closer to the 10,000 gold lead mark for T1. And sure, they don't have a Drake advantage. It's the same, you know, issue as the last game, but just like the last game, it doesn't really matter, right? It doesn't feel like it's going to be that impactful because there's just such a massive lead here for T1 that Gen G are never like going to be worrying about these sorts of fights. This Ruler is just way out of position here, and Teddy's like, okay, this is the easiest killer instinct of my career. Coming forward, Life also way out of position, gets pulled back. And the teleport comes through, but for what? Like, how do you turn this one around? Rascal's like, better walk away as soon as I come out of that one.
Yeah.
And that's actually his teleport down. If he doesn't commit it there, they might get a turret, so he has to. And T1 just have such control over the map.
Okay, again, the one way you can win is if you kill Teddy. Do they have the reach? The answer is no. Absolutely not. 0%. Another kill to the Kai'Sa, 11-0. This is looking like gold solo queue right now. He is just owning the game by himself.
Very much a done deal, I think, this game. He has so much damage that you can't even dive onto him because he'll kill you so quickly. He doesn't actually have to worry about being blown up at this stage. Gen G need way more lockdown to actually kill him. Unfortunately, T1 have all the defensive peel tools against anyone who tries to dive in. And we'll watch this again. Like, Rascal's here. Klid really wants that follow-up lockdown. It's a shot, shot call comes through. Rascal's like, I'm here. Hextech ultimatum gets him out of the ultimate, but like, where is any other follow-up damage? Teddy's positioning is too good on top of it all. There's just no way to follow through and hit any sort of damage or even auto attacks onto the Kai'Sa here.
Yeah.
Who has rapid fire cannon just for extra range, for that extra poke and damage, that extra safety.
Yeah, it's a rough timing because either you go when he went before there are more T1 members, or you wait for your team to catch up.
Lose-lose.
And it's like, ugh. We're probably not going to kill the Kai'Sa. Even if we kill the Kai'Sa and my whole team is there, then T1 is there as well, and they just clean us up even without the Kai'Sa. Because while the Kai'Sa is very obvious, I mean, you have 2, 1, and 12 Hecarim, the Nars decently fed, the Seraphine can do enough damage, right? They have other tools.
Yeah, if you go in, even with BDD hitting an Emperor's Divide on top of it, you have like a, Hextech Ultimate Emperor's Divide coming through, then Cuz just ults everyone who tries to follow up, and then you lose the fight instantly because Teddy just auto attacks. He like presses A and clicks on somebody, and they disappear very quickly. Presses some abilities too, and it gets crazy.
True. Probably that Q ability. I hear that one is pretty strong.
Yeah.
Even after some nerfs.
Very slight nerfs,
Yeah, it's a good one.
Well, I mean, this is just T1 controlling vision now around Baron, while also threatening this inner turret. Oh no, you rotate over there? Well, Cuz is going to push this wave in. And this is very, very slow, methodical play, just like we saw last game. Have an advantage. You can force the team to play tennis with you, basically, and Gen G are responding to every single ping pong that T1 are sending their way. And then the vision control goes deeper forward. Look at those control wards. There's a line of them. And then if you're Gen G, you have to be so careful about how you clear that, because you might walk into a Seraphine ult, you might walk into an Hecarim ult. Obviously, in this case, they know it's Cuz's bottom, but T1 are just waiting. They're just ticking down the clock until that next objective comes up, because they know the fight is almost 100% theirs as long as they don't make a mistake setting up for it.
Yeah. Cloud Soul in this game is actually pretty nice. I know we're kind of in a position now where it's like, man, I mean, I don't think Gen G can beat this Kai'Sa, right? But, still stands to say that the Cloud Soul is going to be pretty nice for T1. And, you just hop in with your ultimate, and to get all those game-changing, super impactful ultimates up a lot quicker, and also to have that speed. Yeah, speed boost is just fantastic on pretty much all of them. So, just really nice for the squad. Not a bad one in this scenario, even though many times there are better souls.
Gen G, I wonder if trying to trade this Drake for Baron is an option for them. The problem is the timing doesn't work out for that either really well, because T1 can't start this first. In fact, T1 just wanted to secure vision on the Drake, but they had no intention of taking that first. They're just going to walk back over here, take this Baron vision away again, and then start that one. I was thinking, like, maybe that's one way Gen G gets a small edge in this game, trade a Baron somehow, but Baron spawns first, T1 clear the vision, here we go. Gen G, you've got one chance in this game, one last fight, and you don't have the tools to win it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is going to take a literal miracle.
The turn with Seraphine alone is ridiculous. Not to mention all the other ultimates that T1 have.
Not to mention they're blind. They have no vision.
Yeah, no vision.
No eyeballs here on T1.
T1, they clear the wards, which actually gives Gen G a chance to spot them on the Baron. So they know that this is coming in. Klid in position. It's really just going to come down to if Klid can steal it away, but they're waiting on the DPS. Carriet here to stun him. That is going to be a very simple and clean Baron take to the side of T1.
And Rascal's going to get mid-turret, but do you really care if you're T1? Not at all. If you're going to grab this Cloud Drake, put yourself one closer to the soul that we probably won't see in this game. It's going to make the Baron push a little bit delayed because of this mid pressure, so that's going to take it a little bit more time. But Teddy is already here to get this inner turret and to look for the inhibitor turret that comes with it. And for Gen G, like you lost the Baron, you couldn't take a fight. Could have had to literally flash over the wall and hope for a 50-50. I think deciding not to do that was by far the better option, not to mention that he was also being stunned and pushed away from even having the chance to do that. So you lose Baron, and now you just have to hope for a defensive fight under inhibitors. And T1, I mean, feels like SK Telecom T1's slow, methodical play here. What do you do against this unless T1 makes a big mistake, which they simply are not?
Yeah. Even Teddy checking all the flanks, all the brushes.
Leaving no bush unturned.
Yeah. Just wants to make sure that he is safe. And now he's got his whole team here. Cuz slowly pushing the wave, you can see that he's not actually forcefully clearing minions, trying to time it here with the wave on the bottom side to crash. Very just, as you mentioned, methodical, classic, traditional League of Legends play. You know?
LCK, you know, traditional style.
Absolutely.
Not postmodern LCK.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, they're just going for the push here. And you can see that with the Azir, it's not going to be easy. It's just going to be the simple push and win for T1.
You know what?
Still have to respect that wave clear.
Rascal is actually going mid again, and this time he threatens an inhibitor turret. There's nobody there to get the Baron buff to these minions, so he clears this super fast. And Gen G handling of this is really well done. Now, can he get out of here is the real question, and it seems like the answer is going to be yes. Cuz has a lot of chasing power with Dead Man's Plate, etc. Doesn't even need to use the blast gun there, and he does get out. So this actually wastes a huge amount of time on that Baron buff clock. It's actually well played by Gen G. I mean, they're still in a really tough spot, and this is not like a game-changing play, but it is definitely a game-extending play.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's all you can hope for right now when you're down 0-1 in this series. You're down 8,000 gold when your opponent's on match point, and T1 with a huge resurgence here. And Gen G fans right now hoping and praying, holding their breath here.
Yeah, I mean, with Kai'Sa as bad as she is, it does feel inevitable, but like, again, you pick the Kai'Sa, you're at Aphelios 0-3, but I mean, he's got 3 items, right? That's still a huge break point for an Aphelios. About to hit level 16.
Rascal's going off the side lane again.
Yeah, I mean, if you wait here as T1 and you take 3 Barons and get nothing from it, then, you know, we enter a stage of the game where we're just an extreme late game and still Gen G's comp is pretty good. So I like that they're actually going for the play here. Teddy is going to go into that back line, immediately blows up BDD, just removes him from the fight right from the get-go. That's a cute little exhaust you've got there, says Teddy. Doesn't affect me at all. As T1, they felt the pressure, and they went for it.
BDD not having any damage in this fight means that T1 could just kind of walk forward here and end the game. Even with a huge taunt, there's just not enough damage for Gen G to end this.
Yeah, welcome to Seraphine's world.
Yep.
You're not going to have much fun with that one. Carrio's got a stopwatch. Teddy, he's got a front line in spades this time around. And with Aphelios going down, that is going to signal the end of the game. Cuz going to pull out that last member. Only Clid remains, and T1 will take the extremely dominant and clean 2-0 win tonight over Gen G. They're going to go ahead and let Faker die as the Nexus will go down. But that is about as one-sided as it gets in terms of T1 just absolutely smacking down Gen G.
Yeah, this is not just T1 bouncing back with an upset win against Gen G. They made a statement with this roster, and it feels like this is the roster that's been a long time coming for fans. This is the roster that won last year in spring, in 2020. Obviously, again, we have to give the caveat of Keria being an over effort, which I think most people would agree is an upgrade right now. But this is the roster fans have been asking for. This is the roster analysts were wondering about. You know, why are they not playing this? Because on paper, it feels like when you put these veterans together, and the team that has so much experience has played that whole season together last year, what will we see? What will we get? And it's taken so long to see it. And then they come out and crush Gen G in dominant fashion. And if T1 continue to play this roster and win like this, you know, those questions we had about their upcoming schedule become a little bit less scary. And maybe they make playoffs and make that run, that miracle run through playoffs that nobody would have thought was possible leading up until this moment. I don't want to get everyone too excited, but I think this is a really bright moment for T1, perhaps the brightest we've had all year long.
Yeah, I mean, Gen G are an awesome team. They're currently 2nd in the league, and they just got pummeled so hard by T1. And, you know, I'll be honest, I think Gen G had a pretty awful day today. I think they kind of looked the way that they did against Live Sandbox when they got 0-2 against them as well. But, I mean, they're still an awesome team. It's not an easy win, and a lot of Game 2 especially was T1 just forcefully taking the game into their hands and winning by their own control, right? It wasn't just Gen G throwing, like, especially Game 2. Game 1, a little bit of both, right?
Sure.
So, as you mentioned, it's still a great moment for T1, and, you know, this is a double round robin format, right? They've taken so many different rosters and tried so many different things. And at the end of the day, if they make playoffs and they find the best roster because of all this experimentation, and they potentially even make the finals against Damwon, a thing that we weren't even really considering with all the other strong teams, DRX, Homa Life, and Gen G in the way, at the end of the day, you got to be happy, right?
I feel like T1, for me, if I look at all the teams outside of Damwon Kia, if we remove Damwon Kia, we're going to take a look at highlights so I can keep talking about this as it comes up. But for me, if I look at all the teams in the LCK that could beat Damwon Kia, and I've been very vocal on this, I've said this in a lot of interviews, I feel like the one team that at its peak has the potential to upset in the finals is T1, at its peak, right? And we haven't seen that peak just yet. And even in this series, we saw a fantastic game. I mean, this is the first time they've played this roster this season, so this is definitely not its peak potential. And that's a terrifying thing when you think about how well this team played today. But for me, like, I think a lot of people are like, well, Gen G has to tighten up the play, or maybe Hanwha fixes their drafting, or DRX, you know, they're the craziest. Maybe they could be the one to take out Damwon Kia. And I think a lot of people are resigned to say, well, it's just impossible. Damwon have won this season. But for me, the hope is in this T1 squad. And if they do have that miracle run to playoffs and then through playoffs, I think this is the team that could do it. And this is the roster so far that gives me the most hope that Damwon Kia aren't just going to smash this season start to finish. And if they do, by the way, that's okay. It's okay for a team to just dominate and win the whole thing. But I think T1, that's the team I've got my eyes on right now, for sure.
Yeah, you know, certainly, I just looking at all the rosters, this one does seem to have the most power. You know, it comes down to the same thing in a lot of the different roles, right? Where it's like, okay, well, Warner has so much potential and he's a mechanical god, right? But at the end of the day, because it's just more consistent, right? That's what we're beginning to see. And you need consistency when we get into best of fives, right? Yes. The playoffs is a totally different beast, right? Best of threes, you know, they're good and all, but best of fives are just the next level. And you need consistency. You need great mental as well, mentality, right? The ability to be tilt-proof throughout a series. All these kind of like these things that are, you know, different from just straight-up mechanics in a game of League of Legends. So we'll see what eventually happens with this roster, but as you mentioned, this is definitely a very huge day, I would say, for T1 to turn things around.
And if you look at these comms here as well, it's very clean. It's the cleanest comms I think we've seen in the T1 victory moment this season. Information share only. No flash, moving on to the next, no flash. Who are we focusing, who's going first, like, where are we going in on? That's the entire conversation here. There's no jokes, there's no memes in this one, and there's no arguments, there's not 4 people talking at once. It's clean.
Did you say let's get it?
I think he said SK Telecom. I'm not actually sure what he said.
He said let's kill him.
Yeah, let's kill him. I think there's something to be said, really, Valdez, about the amount of experience these players have together. And I think the dream, like with T1's roster right now, the dream is one day you're like, okay, when I want to play this like AP, jungle, and then closer plays Aurelia comp, I want closer in. But then when I want to play control mage, I want to put Seraphine in. That's when Faker's. I want to play Orianna, I put Faker in. Okay, I want to play Gnar, I'm putting Zeus in. Like, eventually, maybe we can get to that point. I think we're still a ways away from that. That's the dream. Like, that's the ideal situation where you have 10 players that slot into different drafts. But right now, I think you'll take this if you're T1. You're going to be like, this is it. This is the roster I want us to soar through the rest of the regular season on. I want this roster in playoffs. And maybe T1 can make that miracle run I was talking about. I feel like at its peak, this roster peaks higher than Gen G. It peaks higher than Hanwha Life Esports.